Good day, students. In today's class, we will be learning about tuples in Python. You can either pronounce it as tuples or tuples, whichever is comfortable for you all. Now, what are the things we are going to learn? We will learn foremost the definition of a tuple or definition of tuple. So, what is a tuple in Python? And then we will learn how to access elements in a tuple. And then we will learn about operations that can be performed on a tuple. So when we talk about operations, we will be talking about concatenation, repetition. So these are all some of the operations that we will learn. Membership, slicing, etc. We will also learn about traversing a tuple, and we will also learn about built-in methods and functions. We will also learn about nested tuple and tuple assignment. So all of these things I will teach you. Now, foremost, it is imperative that we know what is a tuple, right? So let me give that definition here. So when we talk about tuple, we are talking about one of the 4 built-in data types. So tuple is a built-in data type in Python. That's the first point you need to know. And to define a tuple is a sequence of data. That's the basic definition. It's a sequence of data. The data can be of any type. Any type is accepted. The next important point is tuple is immutable, but list is mutable. Tuple is immutable. And elements in the tuple are separated by comma. That's critical. We start by placing in a curl parenthesis and by closing the elements by means of the another curl parenthesis. So an example would be, say, t1 is equal to 2, 4, 6, 21, 9. This is a tuple. If a sequence is given, I should say without a parenthesis, it is treated as a tuple. So these are the basic informations that we have to know when we are dealing with a tuple. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some examples, and then I will execute those things, and then you can better appreciate the context. So foremost, what I'm going to do is we will give some examples here. So the first one is, say I'm going to start by saying t1, open the parenthesis and write it and place the elements as 12, 20, 43, 56, and we print this print T1, and then we print type of T1. Right, so let me save this and run it. So clearly you can see this is a tuple, and it's mentioned there, the class is a tuple. So this is an illustration, this is one such example. Now what if I give, say I change this, so let me do that here. Say T2, I'm creating another tuple, and I'm going to give elements like 891, 8, or I should say 981.21. This is a decimal digit here, and then I say big data. I'm giving a single quote, big data, and I'm going to print T2, and I'm going to print the type of the data that I am including here. So you can save it and then you run it. When you run it, see that's the tuple there, and the class is tuple. So we are dealing with tuple. So that's the second example. Now let me move on to the next example. Say what if I create a tuple like this? T3 is equal to, say with a double quote, math score, and then 90, 98.45, and then a list is being included, right? 60, 61, 67, and I'm printing it, and then I'm printing the type, right? So we save and we run it. So the math score, the list, this is the list. The list is included as a data element into the tuple, and the class is tuple. So three beautiful examples we have seen here. And now the next is how do we, I'm going to comment this off, right? The next is how do we access the elements? That's the next thing. How do we access the elements in a tuple? How do we do that? Now I'm going to create a tuple, math scores of say 10 students. So these are scores. First student 90, 98, 97, 96, 65, 67, 45, 55, 3, 6, and how many are there? 3, and then you got a 3 there, and then 9, so one more, say 34. Now I'm printing the math score, print math score, so all of these things would be displayed, but I exclusively want to print the first student score equals, go here, comma, how do you get the first student score? Just say math scores, and then you open a square parenthesis and then place 0. That would give the first student score. So by this line of code, what am I doing here? I'm accessing the element, the first element of the tuple. So I'm running it here. So the first student score is 90. That's perfect. So how would you get the last student score? So I'm going to get the last student score. So how do you do that? So go here. First let me just change this to last student score. Over here, instead of giving 0, you give -1. You save that and then you run it. So that's 34. You see that? That's 34. Now, if you want to get the fourth student score, so it's going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Fourth student score is 65. So we start the count from 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So the fourth student score would be 0, 1, 2, 3. Right? If I want to get the fourth student score, print the fourth student score. So you give the 3, you save it, you run it. So 96, 0, 1, 2, 3. So this is the fourth student score, right? And that's exactly what we got there, 96. So the count in this case, we have to start from 0. That's the way the count is ordered here. Now, if in case you are going to give, or you want the 11th student score, so in this case 11th student score is not there because only 10 students are there. If I were to give the 11th, it's not going to be there. So because the count starts from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. At 9 we will get the 10th student, but I want to get the 11th student. So if you were to give the count as say 10, print, that's going to be the 11th, right? Print the 11th student score. That's going to be 10, but our count is ending at 9. So I'm saving this. So what happens here when you do that, when you execute, when you give something out of the index, we get an exception. You see that? The 11th student score, index, tuple, index out of range. You see that? If you were to give something out of range for a tuple or for a tuple, you will end up in facing an exception. So have that in mind. Now, next important concept is, I just want to get rid of this and I will comment this. So the next important concept we are going to learn is tuples are immutable, right? Tuple are immutable. Immutable means you cannot change them. You cannot perform any alteration of the data. So let me show this to you. Now I'm declaring a tuple, say student score in physics, and the scores are 55, 56, 67, 88, 92, 9, 17. Right? So I've given how many students? 3 plus 3, 6, 7 students scores are there. Now I want to change this 9. So let me print this. Print student scores in physics of -2. -2, I'm printing the last but one student. This student score is going to be printed. That's going to be 9 there. You see that? 9. But I want to change that 9 to 91. I don't want that 9 to be there. I want the student score to become 91. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to perform a slight change. So I'm going to say, I'm going to take this off, and then I'm going to assign a value of 91, and then I'm going to print student score in physics, that entire tuple. So let's see what's the output going to be. We already know this to be as 9, but I'm changing it to 91 and I'm saving it and I'm going to run it. So when I run it, let's see what the output is going to be. You see that tuple object does not support item assignment, so you can't change them. So once you have created a tuple with a score, it cannot be changed. So that's a beautiful point or an attribute of tuple. When you have sensitive items and you are giving the sensitive data set to a programmer to actually do some list of chores that you have already assigned. But the programmer will not have the access to change the data elements in a tuple. Once he or she attempts to do that, an exception is thrown. And that is a nice thing, specifically as I mentioned to you when it comes to securities, right? So now let me move on. Let me just take this off, or let me comment this off. And now we will now see operations that can be performed in tuple. Operations that can be performed on a tuple. Now, first thing is concatenation. Now, I told you that tuple is immutable. So that does not mean we cannot add elements in a tuple. So we can add two tuples and then we can print them out. So let me just take the same example. Student scores in physics is equal to, I'm giving scores, say 90, 93, 34, 45, 56. So 5 student scores are given here, and then I say student names is equal to, say, Tom, Jasmine, and say Marina, 3, and Jack, and 5 students' names have to be there. So 4 are there. Probably the last one being Ethan, right? So I can give a print here. Print student scores probably I'll give a colon there, and then over here print student names. And now I'm going to give print say mark list. Mark list is equal to student scores in physics added with student names, and then I will print the scorecard. So let's see what happens. If I were to print the scorecard with mark list, I will have to get the scores, all of these scores along with the names as a single tuple. So I am saving it and I will execute it here. So clearly you can see this is the student scores, student names, and you have this demarcation line, and then you have the scorecard. So these are the scores and these are the lists. I should say these are the names. Now if you want to extract element, you can do that. So how do you extract it? Say for example, Tom and 90 have to be extracted. So where does Tom feature? This is going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is 5. So I can print here, print student name of 5. I can print there, and I can simply give some heading there, or I should say some name to refer. And then again I can give a comma, and then give a space, and then say score, right? And then go to the student scores and you take 0. So you save it. So I've extracted the name along with the score. So you run it. If you were to run it, you can see student names. Okay, that's because you know the reason why we're getting this. It says out of index. Why is it out of index? We should not have used student names here. We should have used mark list. So that is the reason that exception was displayed there. Now in this case, that's fine. In this case, we wouldn't have an exception for you. So we run this. So clearly you can see the name is Tom and the score is 90, right? See that? 90 and Tom. So that's how you extract. If you want to perform an extraction, you can extract in the fashion that I've shown you here. Now what we need to do is we can move on, and we can also perform concatenation. Now in this case, you can see that the concatenation is actually performed by this operator. So two tuples are concatenated like this. Now if you actually want to just add one particular element, see for example I want to add 77 to this particular student score tuple. So what I can do here is I can simply say appended scorecard, appended scores in physics is equal to this student scores in physics. Just place that, and then you place the concatenation symbol, and to this concatenation symbol you add say 34, and then you print appended student score, right? So now you run it, you see what's going to happen. In this case can only concatenate tuple, not int to tuple. So clearly you can see that when we just gave one number, that one number is taken as an integer, but I'm going to just make a small change. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say 3478. Avoid the error, just you place a parenthesis there. You place a parenthesis there, and then now everything will be fine. So 34 and 78 are added. Now if in case you wanted 34 and 74, and you try to execute this, you are getting an exception, because both these things are treated as an integer when we are performing a concatenation. But on the other hand, imagine you just place them like this, say extra scores, and then give it as 34,78, and then you come over here, you say plus extra scores, and then you save it, and then you run it. Let's see what we're going to get. So you see that 34 and 78 is got. So what's the difference here? What am I doing here? I'm giving a sequence of numbers without parentheses, and then I'm placing them in a variable, and then I'm concatenating the contents of the variable with the tuple. It works. On the other hand, in the previous case, we tried to just place in the numbers and concatenate, but it did not work. So I hope you're able to understand these two differences. If you want to place in the numbers, place them within parentheses, right? Don't place them simply like that. You'll get an exception. Okay, so now how do we repeat things? So this is finished. This illustration is being commented. Now let me just move on to give you another operation. So how do we, in this case, how do we repeat elements? How do we do that? There might be a situation where we have to repeat data elements, right? So how do you do that? Say for example, you are giving, say, numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you have a class of 20 students. So you are dividing the class into 5 groups. All the people who have got number 1, they'll be in a group number 1. People who have got number 2, they'll be in number 2 group. People who have got number 3, they'll be in number 3 group. People who have got the number 4 in number 4 group, and people who have got number 5 will be assigned group number 5. So we are just going to share out numbers 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm just going to give you codes away, some variable, and then I'm going to create 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's it. Now to have this repeated 5 times, we need to simply assign numbers is equal to, it can be any variable, times 5. That's it. And then I'm going to print assign numbers. That's all. Go here, you run it, and you will see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for 1 time, 2 time, 3 time, 4 time, and 5 time. You see, that's how you repeat things. So we are done with this. So I'm going to comment this off, and we will move on. So the next is how exactly we test for membership. Now this is a very important illustration. Sometimes in a group you are looking for checks. You need to check if certain numbers or certain members are there. Say for example, selected for second round interview, right? I am actually creating a list of people who are selected for the second round interview. Say I'm saying Tom, Hans, Jack, Aaron, say Navina, and then Joy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I'll give one more name. Say Patrick. Okay. Now you want to check if a certain name is in this list, in this tuple or not. I should not be using the word term list. I should be using the word tuple. Right? So these are the people who are selected for second round interview. So we are going to make a check. So how do we do the check? Simple. Say for example, I want to find out if Tom we are asking a question. Tom in second round interview. We need to go here and give a print, and then you save it. So if you get the value as true, then it's fine. If you get false, it means the name is not in the list. Now how to make this a little bit colorful? So what I'm going to do is, so clearly you can see the output, you've got true, right? That means Tom is there. So we can make this a little bit colorful by saying print interview result checker, and then you can say name is equal to input. Please enter the name you wish to check for. So the name will be received, and then you need to check the name. So if name in this, then you print the candidate is selected for round 2 interview, right? If not, else you print the candidate is not selected for round 2. That's it. So this would make things more interesting. So we got the tuple list here, or I should say the tuple there with the elements, and then the person is actually checking whether his or her name there. So let me just go here, execute, run it, and now interview list checker, please enter the name. So I'm going to say Jack. So it's capital J. You need to enter it in the same fashion. Otherwise you will get an exception. So Jack, I wouldn't say exception, you will get the name isn't featured in the list. The candidate is selected for round 2 interview. Fine. You see that? Now let me just execute it one more time, and I'm going to check for Angel, for a candidate named Angel. It says candidate is not selected for round 2 interview. You see that? So this is a beautiful program, and just checks for membership. Now use your creativity, and you can just simply, the sky is the limit. And next I'm going to teach you how to extract a part of a string. That's called as slicing, right? You can also do slicing. So this is a small example that I wish to give you on tuple slicing. So let me just comment this off. Now imagine you are setting password to the candidate or to the user. Now what you want to do is you want to ask the user to give in a string, right? To give in a string, and from that string you can actually extract and give the password. So let me just give that password provider, something like that, and I'm going to give a set of characters, say A. So this is a tuple. What you want to do is you want to say give a certain extraction. I'm just going to make this tuple a little bit bigger in size. Okay, fine. Now imagine you want to actually extract certain set of characters from here and give it to the user, and tell the user, say you can formulate your own string from this, and that would be your username, or that would be your password, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first I will give you a simple way. Say print password provider, and then you open, say I want to give characters from 3 to 9, right? So 0, 1, 2, 3 is here. 3, it starts here. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 will not be included. So 76 would be the last one. So let me give you this. Let me save it and run it. So you see that question to know the way in which the slicing takes place. As I mentioned to you, this was the third character, or the character that's in position 3, 0, 1, 2, 3. You see that? So it starts here, and goes up all the way up until 9, but doesn't get the element at position 9 printed. So it's going to be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's it. So what we can do is we can give this to the user, and then actually he or she can formulate whatever combinations they want. We can also formulate, we can also write a code extracting the elements, and then extracting the elements from this and giving the suggestion. So how would I do that? So I can give in a suggestion, say first suggestion, first extract. So let me give it as E1. E1 is equal to now I save it. Okay, that would get the things printed. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a combination here. So I will take password extract of 2, and then E2 is equal to and then I will say password suggester is equal to, I will just give in as okay. So if you are getting some type conversion issue, we can handle that. Okay, so save it, we run it. You see that? Lovely. This is the password suggestion we are giving. So we can have several combinations of this. So what I've done here is I've just shown you how exactly we can perform slicing on tuple. This is a beautiful illustration, and I hope you enjoyed this. So that is our completion on, or I should say the lesson on tuple. As I mentioned to you, we can also perform other built-in functions, or there are also other built-in methods. And say for example, you want to print the length of this, say length of the password suggester, right? I'm saving it. If I were to run it, you see that 3 plus 3, 6 is printed, right? And you can also create an empty tuple. You can also have, say for example, you want to know the index of say k. You can simply say print index of k. But since k is actually a string, you can just place it within quote. So in this case, I'm going to say password suggester, and you need to have a dot there. That's the way you utilize the index function. So index k is featured there. Password suggester k is not featured there, but j is featured. But there are too many j's, so I will give a there, or 7. 7 is the best choice. So if I were to execute this, 7 is present where? That's our objective. You see that 0, 1, 2, 3. 7 is positioned at 3. So that's how you use the built-in functions. So I've given here example of length and example of index. Now, if you want to know how many j's are there, there is something called as count. So what I'm going to do is, that's another built-in function. So I'm going to say here count the number of j's that you have in the password suggester, right? Password suggester is the string that we have extracted, that we have created. So I'm saving it. So you see that 3 J's are there, 1, 2, 3. So that's a beautiful illustration. So we have actually covered quite a lot in this particular class. And to wrap the things up, we have introduced, or we have learned about the built-in functions, the 3 most important built-in functions that can be utilized when we are dealing with tuple. You may be wondering what we have not exactly used the tuple. Now, of course, you have a point. We have used just a string. But if you want to use the tuple, all you need to do is just go here and place in the tuple password provider. So if I place the tuple password provider there, right, and then go over here, place it with password provider, and over here you place the password provider. You can clearly see now the tuple under consideration, or the built-in functions would be acting or operating on this tuple password provider. So I've saved it. Now you can clearly see we will have an altogether different output. So I'm running it. Of course, we are getting the password suggester string, but this is not required. Now clearly you can see the length is 18. You can go and check this off, right? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. The count is from 0, so that's why we are ending up in 17. But over here the function is actually the length. Length means the total characters that are present, and the index of j is 7, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You see, exactly at the 7th position we have, apparently in this case we have 7. Now the number of times j is occurring 3 times. Say 1, 2, 3. Absolutely, 1, 2, 3. So that is how these built-in operations work on a tuple. Thank you everybody. Until we meet again for the next class.